Back to the break. This is still GH Today here on GHOne TV. It's now time for Health Alert. Now, this morning, we talk about spousal mental health neglect. But did you know that out of the over 32 million Ghanaians, about 2.3 million of us, I say of us because I'm Ghanaian too, have a mental health condition or a disorder. But how do we address it? And what really is spousal mental health neglect? And how precarious is this situation? In the studio, I've been joined by Gifty Atambubiri. She's a mental health advocate, and Dr. Seto Abra Nogbe. She's a medical practitioner. Did I say good evening? I'm still in the night. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yes, same here.
And we know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so it's important that we highlight mental health issues. But what is spousal mental health neglect?
So technically, for you to understand what spousal mental health neglect is, you first need to know what spousal mental health is. And for you to know what spousal mental health is, you need to know what mental health is. So mental health is generally the well-being, the total well-being of the mind, socially, and everything put together. So spousal mental health is just how well you keep two married people or people who are in a relationship, a couple, are able to keep the well-being of each other in the mind. Okay, so if you neglect that, that means that a lot of the time we put a lot of things into the backspace, like in our blind eye, and so that is neglecting the well-being of your partner and yourself as well, because of course to take care of your partner, then you really need to take care of yourself first to be able to take care of your partner. So I mean, marriage is a two-way affair, relationships are a two-way affair, but each depends on both. So you take care of yourself, you take care of your partner too. So that, when you don't do that, you're neglecting the mental health of both your partner and yourself.
So is it just the emotional state that is neglected, or physical? Does it encompass everything?
So mental health evaluations encompass everything, from the emotional to the psychological. So when they are evaluating mental health, one of the things they look at is appearance. So appearance really matters. So physical cannot be neglected when you are talking about mental health, as well as the psychological things, the things that people say, what they act, what comes to them first when they open their mouths. What do they do? Are they impulsive? Are they judgmental? All these things come together to evaluate mental health. So yes.
And how easy is it to detect spousal mental health?
So mental health in itself is something that is very sensitive. It's not easy to detect because there's a thin line. I always say there's a thin line between mental health issues and bad behavior. And where we put the thin line is the problem. Because then, like I said, whilst evaluating the mental health of somebody, you really need to go all the way, even sometimes the psychologists go all the way back to childhood times and traumas to be able to evaluate whether what is really happening is actually a mental health problem or is just somebody. So there's really a thin line. It's not something that is very easy to detect.
You know, they say, right? Is it very critical to look at childhood of a spouse before walking, or of a partner before walking in? That can determine how the person will treat you, whether or not you have mental health issues in the relationship.
So there are multifactorial things when it comes to mental health, and it includes your environment and it includes how you were brought up and everything. But I mean, all of us have been brought up in different environments.
Absolutely.
We've all been brought up with different mindsets. You can't really try to dig in that deep. Like you already said before we started, about 2.3 million people in Ghana live with mental health issues. And these are the ones that are recorded. There's so many numbers that have gone unrecorded. I mean, will you go digging into all this? Now, in the now, what is the partner like? What are you evaluating? Now, if the partner is beginning to show mental health issues, then I think the childhood traumas can be dug
But
into.
how
And
do
then,
I know that my partner is exhibiting mental health issues?
so what works for you?
You want to come in?
Yes, please. So it's very difficult to easily detect if your partner is having any mental health issue, especially at the beginning of the relationship, right? Because we all come with our baggages, like
Absolutely.
trauma. Maybe I was raped when I was a child, and you know, couples, as we get to know each other, we begin to ignore some signs and symptoms. You have a wife who is very jovial and all that, but always active. All of a sudden, she crawls back to her shell, you know. And the important thing I want the public to know is the neglect. Some of us, we see the signs, but we are just like, we're on the I don't care mood. And that's why we are just drumming home today.
Is it sometimes you feel that, oh, pay attention, Dodo?
It's no attention, my dear. See, I always ask my people, like, what brought us together? It is through communication. Some of us might use sign language, right? But most of marriages started with communication. I like you, I love you, you know. And there were some outing hangouts here and there. And then all those things ceased. There's no attention, there's no patience. Sometimes you can be talking to your spouse and she's already at the door, or he's already at the door. Some people close from work and they don't even want to go home because the home is not conducive. Now, there's a link between what we're all crying in this country, saying things are hard, the work environment is toxic. How can you form hardness outside? Try to just cover yourself, know that, oh, you can't sit on my interest, I'm hard, you know. And then when you're heading back home, it's another toxic environment. So sometimes the signs, as we are talking about, they are there, but we just don't care. And that is why we're talking about here. So, for instance, sometimes can manifest even physically. You have some headaches that are not going. You have a spouse, if she's sitting down, she's picking her hair, you know. There are some things that we ignore, but they are building towards mental health, or they are indicating or showing that your spouse is suffering from one form of mental health, you know. So she just finished everything and then she's quiet. She was raped when she was a child. So as her daughter is getting to 8 years or 10 years, the age she was raped, she began to just have that flashback. You understand? So she's reacting and you're like, you are overprotective. Sometimes anything, when the daughter comes back, how was your male teacher towards you? You know, she's just so anxious. But you, the man, you're not there. The woman is not there. And because of the culture and stereotype, men want to be that lead, show that leadership role and all that. So they are suffering. They are abusing alcohol, substances just to manage their mental problem because they don't want to exhibit that weakness. If I talk to my wife, she will see me as a weakling. Which shouldn't be the case. We need a home to be so conducive for all of us to live in. So that when we go out at the workplace, it will manifest. The benefits will trickle down. Imagine me coming out with powerful, innovative ideas, how we can turn the economy up down. You see, this is because the home is peaceful. My wife is giving me that peace. But the home is so fire. Like, you know, I'm going, I know that my wife was tired. Where were you? Sometimes they don't do what we are thinking.
But sometimes, doesn't it stem from, let's say, the workplace, and so we take it home? Are these also parts of...
Firstly, you need to understand that there are different forms of mental health issues. That's the first thing we need to know. The second thing you need to know is that there are different severities of mental health issues.
Right.
And the last thing we need to know is there are different risk factors and there are different causes of mental health issues. Now, if you understand these parameters, it is easy to deal with. Now, we have mental issues from very mild ones to very severe ones. And yes, the workplace...
What are the mild ones and what are... but you're talking about the workplace, and we look at the mild ones and the very severe ones.
So, like I said, there are different severities. So something like depression has a mild variation to a very deep variation. Now, the deep variations are where people are having suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideations, people are self-harming themselves. Now, those are very extreme forms of depression. Now, isolation to extreme forms are also severe forms of depression. Now, some mild ones, forms of depression that we may not pay attention to is when they begin to not pay attention, they lose concentration easily. Those are forms of depression. They get sad easily about. Those can be very mild forms, and which, if not handled properly, could go into very deep mental health issues. Now, we have very severe mental health issues like schizophrenia that need a health practitioner or a psychiatrist.
What is schizophrenia, so that anybody out there,
so
as a layperson?
So schizo has different symptoms. So some of the symptoms are hallucinations, self-harm is one of them. Some of them even harm other people. Now, schizophrenic people have some of these symptoms. Okay, so those are very severe forms of mental health issues. But then there are also others, like I already mentioned, depression is one, anxiety is one. And anxiety with severe issues like schizophrenia, even anxiety could be part of it. One thing that people, a lot of the time, people don't pay attention to is what we call insomnia. People don't sleep. They tend to be like workaholics. But a lot of the time, people find things to distract them because they probably can't sleep. Now, that's called insomnia. People don't sleep. Those are also symptoms of mental health issues that we need to pay attention
No, please
to.
come again. I am constantly
and like she
unable to
said,
sleep.
substance abuse. Like a lot of men drink a lot of alcohol and it has become a norm. Like it's okay. But a lot of them are trying to distract themselves.
And hide their pain.
Yes, and hide their pain. Now, these people need love. They need to be shown care. People, and even people who are very promiscuous, I mean, some of them are...
Please, hammer on that again. Hammer on that again.
Yes, I've heard men talk to me and some of them say, do you know which girl broke my heart? And because of that, that's why I don't like stick with one girl and all of that. And they think it's okay, a man can cheat and it's fine. Some of them are dealing with past traumas and then they need love. Basically, I boil it down to love and emotional understanding, emotional support. But whilst giving somebody emotional
how does somebody
support,
give somebody emotional support when the person is hurting the other partner?
All right.
that's okay.
Yes.
Right.
So how can you give me some form of emotional support? So as I mentioned, like the communication begins to reduce, right? So imagine that you see some of these signs that we are both talking about, and then all of a sudden you give that utmost attention at the home. Okay. So I'm like, hi there, it looks like you've changed. Is something bothering you? I'm worried about you. Can you tell me what you are going through? That alone sends some signals to your spouse to know that there's some form of sudden care or something like that. Now, sometimes you might be faced with maybe she might not want to open up or he might not want to open up, but the persistence. Like, you are not just on her space, you know. Sometimes these signs...
Some of these things can be very annoying.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. You're
Because
not
sometimes
all over.
it's
You
not
need
that...
patience to
Yes,
deal with
patience.
mental health
Sometimes
issues.
it's not that... Sometimes you go into a certain mood, not that something is really bothering
But
you.
whilst at it, you have to make sure you don't lose yourself either.
Exactly. So, as like, you know, it's not like you're all over my space. You're asking me what is wrong with me and I'm not trying to talk about it. But you go to the office and you still pick a phone and you call. Hello, how are you doing? Are you okay? Have you eaten? That's like some 2-3 days with that kind of care. Give them the signal that there's care and love. When you create that environment for them, they are able to open up. And then you go to the next stage. They will tell you what they have been going through.
Doesn't it get tiring when people do
When you
these
love
things?
someone, nothing is so tiring. And that is why there are about 500,000 divorce cases, because people don't want to compromise. Everything people are, like, we're all one to the extent that we don't want to mend anything. But when in fact, love supersedes everything.
See, it can be very, very disheartening when you are trying to make, or you're making the effort.
Yes.
But at some point, you are worn out because you also have societal factors
You need to understand your spouse's, what degree of your spouse. That's why I mentioned the parameters from the very beginning. You need to understand your spouse or your partner's mental illness. You need to understand what degree of mental illness they have. You need to even find out whether it's really a mental illness or not. And if you can't deal with it alone, you need emotional support. You need people to support you. If the community can come together to support you, now that's fine. And if you can't trust the community because you don't think they are adequate enough. Now, paranoia is also one thing that you might not know as a mental health problem. But
really?
Yeah. So if you can't trust people enough, then I think you need to seek professional help. Now, unfortunately, in this part of the world, we do not allow ourselves to openly seek professional help when it comes to mental health issues, because once you see a psychiatrist, you are branded. I mean, let me say it in our local languages. And people do not like to be tagged with that. But unfortunately, if you see a psychiatrist, it really doesn't necessarily mean that wobble down in quotes.
Is it that people also are living in denial?
That's one. But I feel the education has not gone down well in this part of the world as well. Like I said, you rightly said 2.3 million is just a small number.
I think there were like 5 or 10 million.
Exactly. So there are lots of cases that have gone unrecorded, partly because of our culture. I mean, in this part of the world, they say bear mansu.
Exactly.
Bear mansu.
Yeah.
So, I mean, suck it up. Like, are you the only one with problems? You have to be a man. No, but a man needs support as well as a woman. Emotional support. They go through things as well. Okay, so these are some of the things that we need to understand. In this part of the world, it's like a woman is supposed to do everything at home. I'm a doctor. I go to work at 8 and come back at 5. I mean, and I'm supposed to come home and clean and cook and do everything whilst my husband is in the couch. Now, that will create mental health issues for me. But of course, obviously, there are men who understand this and are ready to support. I'm not taking away gender roles and everything, but I feel like every relationship should be a partnership, especially when you are trying to make sure that you are living a healthy relationship and you are protecting your partner's mental health.
But what types of therapy or counseling is available for couples who are dealing with spousal mental health?
Okay, so let me come in there. So we have the individual therapy or counseling. And usually what I tell my clients is that you need to go that tendant, like you need to go through that road first. Because you need to...
so you need to go first.
Yes, you need to understand what you're going through before your partner can come in and help. So you go to the individual therapy or counseling, and then we now have the couple counseling. By then, you know where you are now, and you are ready to like involve your partner in the treatment or the therapy session, right? Then we have the family therapy. If your mental health is affecting the whole family, like your children, your in-laws and all that, then they will need to organize a family therapy where they explain what you have been going through. It is not intentional. You've just been battling with some inner walls or something like that. You know, but I want to talk about the fact that mental health is not just you or your husband, but I'm always particular or passionate about the effect on kids. Children, like they see your parents, they see you talking at each other, you are raising, you are shouting, and they know that they are, in fact, you are schooling them to understand that
That's
the only
how
way
life
is. The only way you can understand in this world is to shout. So aggression. So you are wondering why your children are aggressive and being bullies, and we are not thinking about the home. That is what they grew up seeing. So mental health is not just some individual or a couple thing. It's broad. So you see this sugar daddy, sugar mommy thing, where is it coming from? We are just looking at outside things, but from the home. So if they don't get that care from the father or the mother, maybe because they're battling some mental health issues, and then they go somewhere and then an uncle or an outsider who is grown just decides to ask the girl, how are you? Have you eaten? Collect this for food. They see that father's figure in him, then they want that comfort. So we are driving our children into the hands of the abusers. They come back home and we don't even care to ask, how is it? Where did you get this phone? You know, sometimes even children give parents money and you are reluctant. Why? So these children are going to develop mental health issues even early, before they even marry, and then we'll sit here and then we'll talk about what
a lot of parents, is it just from their formative years or there are various stages? Because there are a lot of parents who are equally pushing their children into these spaces, because a parent will tell you, oh, look at your mates, they are driving these cars, they have these latest gadgets, why can't you do same? And so when you bring those gadgets and whatever home or monies at home, they are happy, they accept it.
Yes.
So poverty is one of the very high causes of mental health issues. Now, and then pressure from the society to be a certain kind of way. Now, at a certain age, for instance, you are expected to be married. Now, can't you see all your colleagues that are married and have kids? But no, there's
Societal
no timeline.
standards.
Yes, there's no time. You should have a car. But can't you see that all your colleagues have a car? Yes, maybe some of the things are necessities at some points. But I mean, if you don't have it, what do you do? And so there's pressure to live a certain kind of life at a certain standard of life. And if you don't have a strong mind, now that could actually drive you into mental health issues. Now, not to catch you, and just to add on to what she said about the healing processes, apart from the therapy, there are also medications for people who have gone through very severe mental health issues. Now, fortunately, because of the side effects that these medications have, they are regulated by the psychiatrist. Now, that is why it is important to see a physician, a psychiatrist. no, first you see a physician, because obviously there are organic causes of mental health issues. So
Really?
the physician needs to rule it out, like substance abuse. So they'll have to run a talk screen, for instance. Now, there are some tumors too that may act like mental health issues. There are also, I already talked about substance abuse. Even some infections could act like mental health issues. Now, so the physician needs to rule out all these causes of possible mental derangement. Now, once the physician is done ruling this out, then we talk to our psychiatrist, who can then put you on one of these regulated medications, and it brings you back to life normally. I mean, mental health issues are not the end of the... I think almost everybody has some degree of mental health issues to some point. I mean, I always talk about how there's the mental health crisis and then there's the mental health disorder. Now, everybody has gone through a crisis at some point. I mean, you've lost somebody, you've gone through deep grief before.
Yeah.
Now, that is a crisis that, if not managed well, can turn into a disorder, could turn into severe depression.
Do people ever get out of grief?
Yes, people do.
And does it culminate into severe mental health crisis, or does it become a disorder?
Yes, it could become a disorder if it's not managed properly, if you don't get the right emotional support, if you don't get the right physician to help you, or the right psychiatrist. I mean, psychiatrists are also physicians anyway. If you don't get the right doctor to support you to come out of your mental state or your mental crisis, then you could actually develop a disorder. Now, there are anxiety disorders, there are depressive disorders. Like I said, bipolar disorders, those are very severe ones. You have the manic phase and then the depressive phase. There are schizophrenia. I mean, schizoaffective disorders. There are so many ranges of psychiatric issues when it comes to mental health. So it is important that when everybody goes through I mean, all of us who could go through a crisis, especially with anxiety and depression. I like to deal with anxiety and depression because these are conditions that many people take normally, like it's normal. I mean, you are anxious because you're going to write an exam, but no, this could actually turn into an anxiety disorder that could take a very long time, or sometimes some people don't even ever come out of it. You find people having panic attacks from time to time. And so, I mean, especially at workplaces, especially in schools, I am against correcting people by being aggressive towards them. Now, that aggression could actually pan out into anxiety problems and depressive orders. I mean, different children have different ways for you to deal with them. Some children need the hard face, but however, I mean, I think love goes a long way, taking your time to understand why a person acts in a certain kind of way and finding the correct measure that will deal with. I mean, we've grown up seeing our parents cane us, teachers using canes in the institutions, but then again, I mean, there's no straight jacket approach when it comes to individuals, because individuals are a composition of their upbringing, their composition of their genetics, because, I mean, family traits could also bring mental health disorders.
Really?
Yes, if you have it in your family, it could pass down. I mean, it could be genetic. And then
So
there are
if
environment, stress factors.
For want of a way, but for your family, then, or if you have
it gives you a possibility. It doesn't mean you develop it, but it gives you a possibility. Now, just to wrap up what I'm saying, if you have twins, I mean, two children born of the same mother, the same day, at the same time, they are obviously, even though they have the same family background and everything, even them, their genetics are different. Now, you put one person in Africa, for instance, and you put one person, say, I'm putting a wide gap so that we can understand clearly what I'm talking about, and you put somebody, say, in the United States or in Europe, you would realize that they won't come out the same way, because the cultures are obviously different.
Yeah.
They may not, their physique might even change based on which parts of Africa or which parts of Europe that they are being brought up at. So all these things are factors. It's multifactorial. It's genetic, it's environmental, and of course, most importantly, when it comes to mental health issues, it is the emotional part and the psychological part that matters. It is how you deal with somebody emotionally, because a lot of emotional issues drive a lot of people into mental health issues, and that is why you find that people go through divorces, and it's a strain on their mental health. Some of them don't recover. People go through heartbreaks, and it takes a lot for them to come out of it. And only few people have been able to pick themselves up again and stand out there like they are
Is
supposed
it
to.
healthy for people who come out of relationships to immediately walk into relationships?
Ideally, you need time to heal. I mean, this is somebody you love, and you've invested so much emotions into loving this person. You've built, I don't want to say you've built your world around them. That's not the correct thing to say, but like you've built a certain bond with the person. Now, a lot of the time with breakups, you are not expecting it. So you feel this person is your world, and all of a sudden it gets taken away from you. Your whole perfect ideation of this person gets shattered in front of you. Now, if you walk into another relationship immediately, there is the possibility of carrying that baggage and destroying what could have actually been a beautiful relationship by carrying the baggage from the old relationship. I personally, and I think most doctors will agree with me, that anybody who has gone through such a huge emotional trauma will need some time to heal and then
how long is
understand
some
that
time?
it varies from person to person. I mean, some people take a day, some people take a week, some people take a month, and some people take years. Now, it varies from person to person because we are not built from the same material. But when you are ready to actually move on from what may have shattered your world, I mean, I think everybody needs to come together to support you to make that decision.
Gifty, you wanted to add
Yes,
something?
yes. So when you talked about the workspace, I think we need to touch on that as well. So sometimes it's so also toxic to the extent that there are certain people, when you hear them just put off their car or you hear their footsteps, then you are just on a different zone. How do you then give your best so that the whole world or even your country is better? Then you bring that as well back to the house, and then because of power and control, when you come, it's just like it's like a war-torn zone, like a kind of a war area, right? So children were playing. Immediately they hear mommy or daddy is coming, then the TV is off and they are back to, you see,
Back to factory
factory.
setting.
Why are we, like, I
Back to
ask the
factory
question, why are we
settings.
doing that to ourselves? So just picture
But
somewhere.
sometimes, is it not because some of these children are very stubborn, and so they will need, for want of a better word, a very strict parent to put them in check.
Yes, different people are brought up from different materials, so the correction method, but you need to understand who you are dealing with. There's no straitjacket approach. Some people need love, some people need a strong fist, but whilst doing that, make sure you're not abusing them. Now, when she said a war-torn zone, it brought me back to one very important disorder that I didn't talk about, which is the post-traumatic stress, PTSD. I mean, you could give these children PTSD by your method of correcting them. Just the same way soldiers get PTSD when they go for war situations and all of that. So we need to be careful how we correct people. I mean, at the end of the day, you just want the thing to be done better. What is the essence of the correction? Is the correction supposed to make your ego better, or is supposed to make sure that whatever it is that was done wrongly is done better the next time? At the end of the day, you want to make sure that whatever is done. For instance, if my child did their homework and they didn't do it properly, my aim is, or they got a 0 from school, my aim is not to prove to the child that they know nothing and they must be better and blah, blah, blah. The aim is to make sure that the next time they write their homework, they are coming back to me with a 10/10. So we should have goals. We should set goals when it comes to correction. So there's a thin line when dealing with mental health issues, because you might end up abusing these children unconsciously, or abusing people in general unconsciously in the name of correction. And then the goal, which is to make things better, will be defeated. So we need to pay attention to some of these things when it comes to mental health disorders.
I think I want to still hit on the fact that for us to have that clear picture and that healing process to work well, the individual, if I'm the wife or the husband, should be willing to really accept what you are going through, even before the help can make any meaningful impact, right? So as a wife, you are listening to me right now, a husband, you are listening to me right now. We've mentioned some of the signs. We have physical and emotional signs. You don't sleep well, or you are oversleeping. You are just so irritable and all that. It's about time you ask yourself, is this how I want to live my life? Is it not affecting my family? Is it not affecting my work, like my colleagues and all that? Like, it's about time we just all come to factory reset. Like, we shouldn't live on that zone, you know, just that irritable state and all that. So, in fact, this evening, when you go home, please just take your time and spy your spouse very well. She finished serving you the food and she goes back to sit very like lonely. You are eating and you are on your phone or laptop. That's what you did during the day. It's home time. So these things you have been doing have accumulated and have given your spouse some serious depression. You know, some serious anxiety.
People are in
The
relationships
little
and
noise,
they're alone.
they are alone.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
So you say, oh, can we talk about this? He said, no, tomorrow. What if tomorrow never comes? You go back and she has committed suicide. He has committed suicide. So these are the things that we are all ignoring, and that's why the topic is mental health neglect. Some of that, most of the couples are on I don't care mode, to be sincere. I've worked with a lot of couples, and that's what happens. Anytime I want to initiate the chat, she's like, I don't have time. Some of them have committed suicide. Like,
Now, let me touch on the suicide part, which is something that we shouldn't neglect. Suicide doesn't show signs. Now, we've heard several stories of, oh, she was happy, she was just talking to us. So you should be considerate when you are making statements. You should be considerate when you are talking about another person, because you may not be talking about them even in their face, but they may hear it later, and then you might not know what damage. So in everything we say and do, we should be considerate. We should be considerate when dealing with other people and their situations.
Now I want to give out 4 ingredients that can help all of us, especially the spouse.
Please go ahead.
That it should be a good detective. I will explain. You should be a therapist at home. Why these things? Okay, so if I call a therapist right now to book, it means I have found that person trustworthy. And that environment is a safe haven for me, right? So if you are the spouse and you are creating that safe haven at home, it means your partner will open up. So even before you think about external therapists, you yourself should start performing that therapist role. It doesn't mean you should offer advice because you are not trained to know the right things to say. And when you are initiating that conversation, you need to be very, empathy should be involved.
Exactly.
You should be non-judgmental and you should show sympathy, care, understanding, and give them the platform to express themselves. When I say a good detective, what do I mean? You know how police do their work. They ask the necessary questions to be able to nail you as the suspect, right? So these are the questions. So I've realized that you didn't take your food, you know, or you didn't even take your breakfast. Is everything okay? Atakwa will just ask, but you two do know I'm wasting food here. I'm just prepared food, you know. Yeah, these are the things that when you go, you leave the premises. That thought alone, they will think about it the whole day.
And sometimes, instead of addressing the issue, they become very defensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, because you are trying to bruise their ego, especially if the man is the man. You know, I'm the one providing the money. I made you cook, and if I don't take, why are you asking me that you are wasting food? Like, can we just go back to where we're trying to get each other love? You know, you have to talk to me, like follow me, like some 2-3 weeks before I accept.
And the detective part is not just about communication. Your eyes should be sharp, your ears should be sharp, and even your nose should be sharp. Because if your husband is developing, or your wife is drawing towards alcohol, then they may say, no, me, I'm not drinking and all of that, but your nose has to work. Your eyes have to work. Like, what are they doing? Are they not clean like they used to be before? Do they scatter their things? Did this person used to be prim and proper, and all of a sudden they are not prim and proper anymore? You need to hear, what are they saying? Are they saying, if a man starts to tell you...
before you met the man, he was drinking. Does that mean that there could be
No. So that one is a pattern. And you should know how much drink that how much of drink they are taking. If it's occasional, I mean, people take alcohol occasionally. I mean, that's their lifestyle. You can't stop them. But you should know how excessive the drinking is. Now, with your communication, I always say, in a relationship, I don't think anybody, and the signs you see in a relationship are the same ones you see in marriage, or even worse. So if a man starts to tell you that I will slap you, they start to push you up, like they start to be physical with you. Now, these are red flags that should, it doesn't always mean that is it. Sometimes people get provoked to the extent, but I mean, we have to have anger management when it comes to especially somebody that you care about and somebody
Okay.
that you want to be with.
Okay.
You know, one thing that is so rampant now, the way we point hands at each other, accuse each other wrongly. So, like, the spouse comes back very late. The only thing that is in your mind as a partner is that you were either with your side chick or something. Like, meanwhile, the person was avoiding
As for this
avoiding
part,
your drama.
the men in my studio don't like it.
So I'm giving them that. You see, sometimes it's not that they are cheating outside. They are just avoiding your drama. So what if you were that loving wife, you see your husband walk
If you
through
pay
the door?
attention with your eye, your nose,
Exactly.
your ear,
You will
your
know
mouth,
what is
mouth.
wrong.
Thank you very much, ladies. It's been
you
very,
so
very
much.
insightful having you. That has been Dr. Seto Abra-Nogbe. She's a medical practitioner, and Gifty Atampubiri. She's a mental health advocate. And this morning we've been discussing spousal mental health neglect and how to address these. That's it for Health Alert.